Friends, Brian here for Yes You Can Play Guitar, and once again, do I ever have an awesome interview for y'all. A few years ago, a couple years ago actually, I saw a video of a classical composer reacting to, I believe it was a Dream Theater song. Okay, so this channel was of a very highly classically trained composer reacting to a lot of different metal and progressive metal bands. Dude, that's me. So it was interesting to see what is he going to say, and I became fascinated with this channel and this classical composer who's doing these reaction videos to music he wasn't really familiar with. And I liked the way how he treated the music with respect, it was really interesting getting his viewpoint on the songs, how he would deconstruct them theoretically and musically with what they were doing, and his ear was amazing. Just blew me away. Plus, he was very articulate, well-spoken, and he seemed like a great guy. You got kind of those feel-good vibes watching his videos. Well, my good friend Doug Helvering and I had a great discussion. Like my other previous interviewers or interviewees, he was very kind, he was very generous, and very generous with his time. I learned a lot from talking to Doug. It was very, very interesting and fascinating. Again, his channel went from less than 200 subscribers to almost 250,000 subscribers in 2 years. In today's day and age with YouTube, that's pretty fascinating. He has an amazing story, and again, I think you all will really like it. Because you gotta have your dose of the Daily Doug, y'all. Check it out. Friends, Brian here for Yes You Can Play Guitar, and it is my absolute pleasure, to have none other than Doug Helvering. You know the Daily Doug, he has that nice little harmonization of it in the beginning. As my guest today, Doug, I am so happy to have you here. I love your channel. It's so great to see you. Thank you for being on today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
So, now Doug, I know that you've had a channel for about 15 years. But the past, I would say year, 2 years, something kind of happened. That's around when I noticed you on YouTube. Can you just give everyone a bit of a background on you, and
Sure.
we'll go from there?
Yeah, sure. I am a classically trained music composer. All three of my college degrees are in music composition and theory. And I started my channel when I was in grad school back, early on, in the 2000s. And just as a little place to put out some videos of performances of my music and just various other things. And after, 10 or 15 years of relative, pining and obscurity, I think at the beginning of 2021, I had less than 200 subscribers total on my channel, and I had recently started doing this vlog, the Daily Doug, and I started doing it when I kind of lost my teaching gig, and I wasn't sure what was going to be next for me, and it was something for me just to do that was something positive for me to do on my own in my day, instead of during the pandemic, freaking out and all this other stuff. And it was right around late January of 2021. It was my little brother saying, you should do these reaction style videos. And I'm like, I don't like those. Why would I do those? He's like, no, you're good at talking about music while listening to music. I've seen you do it. Yeah. In your classes, in your classrooms. I'm like, okay, well, what should I? So I called him on. I'm like, all right, well, what should I do? He said, Iron Maiden, Fear the Dark. I'm like, why should I do Iron Maiden? He's like, because Iron Maiden fans are awesome, and they will find you. They'll click on it. And he was right. Yeah. And so I've got 150 something subscribers, and I do Fear of the Dark, and I don't know what I'm doing. I just said, hey y'all, and here's the song, and that's interesting. It looks like they're in E, and there's these chords, and all right, we'll see you next time. And I come back a few days later, I'm like, why have like 6,000 people watch that? That's amazing. And then there's people in the comments. If you like that one, you should do Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I'm like, okay. Hey, welcome back to the Daily Doug. I'm doing Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Oh, if you like that one, there's this band Nightwish you should do. And my brother was like, Opeth next. So
Yeah.
like the first 10 over the first 3 weeks were just because my brother was egging me on and I was responding to the people in the YouTube comments. But after a few weeks of doing it, subscribers start ticking up. I'm like, this is nice. People are watching my stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll keep doing it. And fast forward 6 months later, we hit 100,000 subscribers and I have a Patreon. And then fast forward another year and we're into kind of Daily Doug 3.0 and doing our thing. And it's turned into our new business.
So
Yeah.
why don't you give me your take on why your channel exploded, and then I'll give you my take on why.
I the thing that I hear most often that is coming from the standpoint of appreciation is people that love the music that I'm looking at, mostly metal, hard rock, progressive rock, some jazz fusion, stuff like that, stuff that I really haven't paid attention to in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, you know, you're approaching these with respect. You're not talking down about the music that I like.
Yeah.
You're actively trying on the level to inform me as a fan what makes it tick, and I can understand a little bit more in depth about the music that I love, about the sounds that drive me personally.
Yeah.
And they just generally are thankful for that, because people with academic backgrounds in music tend not to treat this type of music on a daily basis with a whole lot of credibility. And so I think it's new to those folks. And that, more than anything, I think is what really draws people back and makes them think of me as a friend that they can trust.
I'll give you my take now. Okay, from my perspective, I remember. So it's interesting. I do some reactions too, and it's the stuff that I wasn't familiar with that people tended to endear me to as well. I can relate to that. The music that you were, the metal, the thrash metal, the progressive metal, I'm very familiar with that. That's my old cup of tea. So the first time I saw a classical composer responds to, I don't know if it was Yngwie Malmsteen, Symphony X, or maybe it was a Dream Theater, but I mean, those are some of my big influences on guitar. I thought this should be interesting. So once I clicked on it and you start talking, it's true. You treat them all with respect. You're not, you know, I studied jazz a little bit, and I'd never say I'm a jazz musician or guitar player. I've studied it, but like in some genres, classical and jazz, maybe they tend to look down on metal, and they're not shy about giving you their opinion. Not, hey, not everybody, but you treat it very much with respect.
There is an element of snobbishness. I know more about music than you do.
Just remember, friends, Doug said it, not me. Okay,
I hang out with these people. You know. Yeah.
The thing that caught me the most was, I was like, holy shite, this guy's ear is amazing. Like I've got a pretty good ear, but it's just amazing watching you go into the theoretical and musical dissection. Like, were you born with perfect pitch, or what? How did that happen?
And I do not currently have perfect pitch. Actually, my story in terms of my ear is a relative success story. I had a whole lot of ear infections as a kid. I had several, hospital stays as a kid to try to, I had all this like ear infections and shit. And I did not have a good musical ear. It wasn't really well trained until I got started getting into music in high school and then into college. My family is not a musical family. We don't listen to a whole lot we never did listen to a whole lot of music. If we were watching something on television or listening to something on the radio, it was a ball game. We were a sports family.
Yeah.
So in the evenings, instead of putting on an LP and just sitting down and listening with your friends, I was watching the game with my grandma, or listening to the to the Cardinals on the radio, and so I never really got into it. But the more you do it, like I started to get into writing music, I became interested in how it works, and I would be entirely frustrated because I would think of these sounds in my head. And I'm like, that would be a great song. How the hell do I get it from here to on paper or to other musicians? And I couldn't do it. And it pissed me the hell off. So I thought, okay, I need to figure out how to, what is my head telling me that my hand needs to know?
Yeah.
And you start, and you know, do re mi fa sol fa mi re do, and it's just day after day after day. And it really started to come for me when I started teaching it at the college level, because if you're going to teach ear training to freshmen at a conservatory who have been doing music their entire lives, you better be as good as they are at it coming in, or better, so that you have credibility as a teacher. And so you fake it until you make it. And after 20 something years, I'm like, I start to trust that, I remember what Joy to the World sounds like. That's in D. I remember what, other songs sound like. That's in that mirror, or that's in that key. And I can remember, oh, if that sounds like that, that's what key they're in. And I can have those little clicks for me. I also tune up before I do every single episode. And if I'm doing Iron Maiden, I'm going to tune to an E, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be close to it. Right. So it's kind of the way that's come for me.
So for the people watching who don't know what perfect pitch is when you hear a note and you can identify what it is right away. Now there's, some people are born with it. I remember coming up on guitar in the late 80s and the early 90s, there's always this guy in the classifieds. He always had this, each pitch has different colors. I forget his name, but he had this chorus you could buy. I never did specific training for it, but I have a relative idea when I hear a pitch, but watching you is very amazing. It's like, wow, like you already knew that. And of course, one of the things I teach some of my students that have been playing for a while, we learn about the harmonized major scale. Sometimes when you're trying to figure out, like a commercial song, once you figure out what key it is, then you have an idea of what chords go along with that key. So then it's easier to narrow it down and guess. But some of the songs you're doing are like, especially some of the progressive stuff, it's very complex. So
it's not easy. It's in the fast. So like the easier stuff actually has been like Pink Floyd. Their stuff is really atmospheric. The chords don't change very often. They give you very clear motives. It's a different type of music than something like Yes, or even Fast Forward. Dream Theater. The notes are going so fast that it's difficult sometimes to pick up. But I'm mainly listening for the bass, and I'm listening for when I've sensed that the harmony is changing, and that's always the way that I've approached my own music making, is from a harmonic progression sort of standpoint. This harmony supports this harmony, and this goes to here, and it becomes kind of a train of musical thought. And so that's why my head goes to chords a lot instead of riffs or other things like that. But that's normally where my head goes first if I'm trying to really quickly understand what's going on in a piece of music.
The other thing is, I find with your channel, and just being completely honest, you seem like a good guy. One person a long time ago I met who was very successful on YouTube, who's no longer with us, rest in peace, but he told me, he said, in YouTube, the secret is just be you. And you really come across as genuine and a likable guy,
Thank you.
But another thing that fascinates me as a YouTuber, not just a musician, but as a YouTuber with your channel, is this. I had someone comment on one of my videos I made a year ago, right when my channel started. And for some reason I said, oh, that video, I watched it, and I'm like, oh my God. Some YouTubers, myself, I'm guilty of this, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I get caught up in the production. My lighting, the cameras, the angles, the editing, where you kind of seem to, your videos are great, the content's so good, but you keep your production levels, it seems like it's at a, you don't get all caught up in that. You're like, hey, I think I saw a video where you said, I'm on my iPhone. I was like, that's awesome.
For the first, I had 150,000 subscribers before I ever had an external mic or a camera besides my iPhone. I did it all off with I literally, here's a little tripod, and
Yeah.
your iPhone fits in there, and that's why I had to be so close to the dang camera, is because I needed it to pick up my voice with relative ease.
Yeah.
So the lean in, like, what's going on, was helpful for me. And of course, now I have a better camera. I've got a nice, what I'm on now is a 4K webcam, but I've got a nice new Canon camera to record stuff with. So some of that's came as my channel has progressed,
Hmm.
and it's a little bit easier now to be, to have the quality be better. But yeah, for the first, long time, it was just, put your phone on a little tripod on your desk and talk into it.
What's let me ask you if I can ask you this. Yeah, I think that's awesome. What was your family, your brother, your partner? What was the reaction when your channel started taking off? Or was it like, oh my God, this is incredible, or this is amazing, or the
It was weird. It still is.
yeah,
My brother is the music connoisseur of the
yeah,
family. I'm the one that studied music, but my brother Dan is the one that had, the sleeves chock full of CDs, and like he could be like an instant DJ at any party because he had so many different styles of music. He loves all styles, and he gets really he's the one that gets really emotionally over the edge excited about shit, and I'm the ones that going, how did that work?
yeah,
That's interesting. What did they do there? And so we kind of work really well off of each other. So he's been a really driving influence for most of the time. My mom just sits back and goes like, I haven't watched the metal episodes. Let me know when you've got, are you doing any Elvis? I'm like, no, Mom, I'm not going to do any Elvis just yet.
yeah.
You know,
That's funny.
I like Elvis. Why don't
Yeah.
you? I'm like, okay, Mom, I'll put Elvis on the list.
145 in the key of whatever.
It works.
So as I was saying earlier, uh, Doug and I just talked about this briefly earlier. Well, I'm in that mode right now. My channel, it's a little over a year old, 7,000 subscribers around. I'm finding the work level has gone up with YouTube exponentially because you got to keep putting out more output. Um, uh, how do you balance your time? Because between your YouTube, you have an amazing Patreon community. You put a lot of I'm part of it. You put a lot of work into your Patreon.
Thank
Um,
you.
but having a relationship, getting groceries, making meals, getting everything done around the house. How do you balance your time?
I have a very supportive partner.
Hmm.
My wife Megan is like a part of the team, and she really helps with like flagging emails, like, "Hey, take a look at this." I mean, because normally I'm kind of like in my own zone.
Yeah.
I'll wake up in the morning, and typically I'll take my mornings as my free time, as my thinking time. I'll do walks in the morning. I'll rest. I'll do my stretches and other sorts of that's when the grocery store trips happen and all that sort of stuff. But around midday is when I really go to work, and I'll start a read in. I'll spend an hour or so, maybe less, maybe more, depending on the type of piece I'm going to do for that day. I go and get a clean shirt on, make sure my hair is combed, and then I just go no script, and I just hit record and
Hmm.
go and see what happens.
Yeah.
I've been so accustomed to, when you teach, like, especially where I taught at Westminster Choir College, it's a famous music conservatory, and you've got an hour and you've got a whole court, and you don't get retakes. And these kids are looking at you going, I'm paying $35,000 a year to be here. You better be good.
Yeah.
And so you just go, and I'm accustomed to, like, every 3 or 4 or 5 minutes say something off the wall that makes them go, did he really just say that? I'm like, yes, now you're paying attention to me again. Good. And so you learn the pacing and how to deliver in real time and become uh an off the cuff speaker.
Yeah.
uh and be able to, and the whole like talking while the music plays, like I've got a lot of music to get through in a class. If I'm playing a 30-minute piece and I've got 60 minutes of class time, I can't play it for 30 and then you know, stop it and go back to it and say, remember this, you heard this, remember this. I have to like, hey, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, watch this, they're changing keys. I'm just accustomed to basically calling balls and strikes as I hear music. And that's really, I think, what my skill is in my channel is I'm listening to this stuff and I'm just being a color. I'm going back to, you know, when I used to listen to, you know, Cardinals broadcasts and Cub broadcasts. You know, sometimes I'm Harry Carey and sometimes I'm Joe Buck.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like, holy cow. I
Yeah.
can't believe he just did to the, we went to the minor four chord.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? We need a replay. Yeah, it's, and the other thing that I really learned in teaching for that many years is that being a teacher is like, if I'm going to give an hour lecture, it's really an hour of stand up. It's you need to obviously know what you're talking about and be able to convey the information, but you need to be an entertaining presence.
Yes.
Otherwise, they're just not going to buy into you.
Yeah.
So I'm naturally an introvert, but when I get in front of the camera, when I'm getting in front of a group of students, that teacher instinct turns on, and it's kind of like riding a wave, and I really enjoy it every day. I enjoy it.
I have an unusual question for you, but if I can just, we're doing a Brianism here. I have to just kind of give a quick little backstory.
Sure.
YouTube, and I for me also Patreon kind of goes hand in hand with YouTube, but I don't want to make this interview about me, but I had a rough number of past years. You know, a lot of stuff went on, and I was a very jaded person about a year ago. I had my YouTube. I shut down all my social media. I just didn't want to deal with people. I kind of, I have a wonderful partner in my life now, and we kind of live in semi-isolation. But with YouTube, it became very strange because we often kind of relate YouTube. I've had many people say to me, "I don't want to do a YouTube channel. I can't deal with the comments. What if they're?" But I've met so many wonderful people through YouTube, and and you know, even my patrons. I have a small but wonderful Patreon community. It just, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that people think enough of me to donate and be supportive of my channel. There's just, I guess what I'm trying to say is I hated the world a year ago, but YouTube of all things has really opened up my heart, my eyes again. Go, you know, there's really good people out there. Has that happened to you at all in any perspective?
I have similar feelings. 2020 basically broke me.
Yeah.
I came up through the ranks. Once I decided, you know, what I had an aptitude for, I wanted to go for it. I wanted to be a college professor, writing music, conducting music, teaching, and being a part of an academic community. And I gave it everything I could. I graduated in 2008, right as the economy went like that. So there were no jobs, you know.
Yeah.
And I happened to get a really decent adjunct part-time position back where I did my master's at Westminster, thanks to just some networking with previous teachers and mentors. And that became a really nice paying job. I was able to supplement that by being a part-time church musician. And I applied, I think, over a decade, probably hundreds of times for open professorships, like full-time gigs, and I never could snag one.
Yeah.
And it was just, you know, how long do I need to just run and toil working 2 and 3 jobs to make this, what I feel that like I'm good at, work? And by the time we got to 2020, our school's enrollment had dropped precipitously, and there's a lot of reasons for that I won't go into. It struggles with the parent university, but then when the pandemic happened, and it's a virus that's spread by you know, air, and we're vocalists and we're choir, and we're like, holy shit, what's going to happen now? You know, and I lost my gig. I'm in my early 40s. I'm like full midlife crisis. What the hell am I going to do? I
Yeah.
haven't been in the private sector for 15 years. Who's going to hire a composer?
Yeah.
You know, I can do anything that you want me to do, probably as fast as anybody else could do it, but, you know, give me a shot. And that's when I was really trying to rebuild myself. I was very jaded,
Mm-hmm.
and I was upset at the world. And quite frankly, it was the 2020 election cycle.
Yeah.
And I had thoughts. So my wife said, don't complain to me, tell it to your phone. So so a lot of those early Daily Dougs for me going, hey, this happened today. And I just can't believe what just happened. So I wasn't even doing music because music broke my heart,
Mm-hmm.
you know, after all of that time. And it wasn't until like doing that for a few months, and then you get past the election. I'm like, okay, I really need a job now. What the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
And that little spark that that, you know, with the music reactions started a process, and I just followed where the energy was. And like you, I've been blessed and astounded by the generosity of
Mm-hmm.
people,
Yeah. You know,
individuals, as a community. I've gained many new, what I would call or and consider cherished friends, even though we've never met in
it's so
person.
weird. Yeah.
I've got new buddies to go to concerts with,
Yeah.
uh, you know, and we, like, for the first time in my entire professional life, I'm able to do things that I think that I'm good at,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm um, you know, energetic about doing,
Mm-hmm.
that is allowing our family to have a roof over our heads and eat relatively comfortably. You
Yeah.
know, it's not extravagant,
Mm.
but, you know, it's I'm happy about
You
it.
know,
You know, so it's been a really great thing.
I'm going to say, Doug, as a rule for me, although I am a man of faith, I tend not to talk about religion or politics
Mm,
much because it always ends up in a you know what kind of show, and somebody always loses and there's hard feelings. But I think your
yeah.
story is a prime example of the famous saying, when God closes a door, he opens
Mm,
a window.
sure.
So that's an amazing story, and I'm
Yeah.
glad we kind of have a few little things in common there because of all things, YouTube really opened up my eyes and my heart again, and it's just I still can't every time you know like I you know there's donations or whatever. I'm just like I can't believe I still can't wrap my head
Yeah,
around
we
it.
have we have people that give us tips and donations. I get people now. I mean, uh, the top tier of my Patreon we call the Council of Dougs. It's
Yeah,
kind of fun, but these people on their own a few months ago got together and raised money, like, above and beyond what they were paying to be a part of the community,
yeah,
and said, we want to, you know, thank Doug and Megan and get them some stuff. So we have like a whole, like, all of these a lot of these LPs
yeah,
were gifts
yeah.
and I have a new turntable. The new camera was provided by my own community.
Yeah.
It's I'm
So,
just thankful, you know.
yeah.
It's affirming. It makes me think on a daily basis, if I'm feeling down or feeling tired or feeling whatever, I know that, you know, there's people out there, even if it's a few, that are looking forward to the video that I'm going to put out today. And so, out of respect and camaraderie with these people, I'm like, I need to pull myself together and
Yeah.
all right, what am I doing today? Like, later, as soon as we get off this chat,
Yeah.
I'm going to prepare. I'm doing a full side from a Yes album
Okay.
later today, and I haven't heard it. I don't really know much about it, but in about 4 hours I'll have a video about it.
Wow. Um,
You know.
is Doug, again just kind of switching speeds here. I'm from Canada.
Cool.
But I, for some reason, we had talked for weeks and we were setting up the time, and then just like hours ago, I'm like, for some reason, I thought you were in the Midwest or St. Louis or something. I don't know why that was in my head, and I'm like, I don't
Mm,
know if we're in the same time. So I'm like writing, going, hey, are we in the same time zone? When we settled on a time, but
yeah.
uh, You're in Eastern Standard Time now, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I live in New Jersey. Megan and I have lived in New Jersey since '09. We moved out
Okay.
here after I got my doctorate. I did, if you see up here, the University of Kansas, that's where I did my doctorate.
Okay.
And so like both Megan and I are from Nebraska. I consider Omaha my hometown. But I came out to New Jersey to do my master's and really love this little state. It's
Yeah.
kind of like it's a weird little state. It's really pretty. It's got a lot of people. It's a little
Yeah.
expensive to live, but I mean, there's a certain loveliness about being an hour from New York, an hour from Philly, an hour from the shore, and an hour from the mountains,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, I was also going to tell you too. The copyright issues sometimes with YouTube for the casual viewer who's not a YouTuber. We both know what it's like when you get it's blocked or ineligible or whatever. I think
Hmm.
sometimes people think we make more money than what we actually do from the videos that we do. Um,
Hmm.
as a YouTuber, do you feel I never get into the disputes. Do you think it's worth doing them?
Yes.
Okay.
I every let's see. I mean, I'm doing a channel that includes music, so I need the music so that I can talk about the music,
Yeah.
and I need the entire song.
Hmm.
So it's of course everything that I'm doing has copyright applied to it, and it's my point of view that what I'm doing um, here with my YouTube channel is almost exactly the same thing that I was doing in the classroom, where I would
Okay.
get a fair use exemption as an educator to
Yeah.
play the opening riff of Led Zeppelin to show my students how a descending chromatic bass line works in a minor key, for
Yeah.
example. You know, um, and that's covered by fair use because it's educational, and of course that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
My viewers I think of as students, and and that's why I always put in my videos, here's my reference video, it's also on this same platform available for free.
Yeah.
So the musicians, their agencies, their publishers have decided to make their content available for free on YouTube's platform.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm not, stealing a Spotify link. I'm not, doing all this stuff. I consider it free use, but I also know, or fair use, I should say. But I also know that at the end of the day, the artists and their managements have the right to say we don't want our music to be included in this, or we're not okay with it. So if they decide that they don't want to, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
One of the bands, King Crimson, that a lot of people ask me to do, I don't do on my YouTube channel because I did two of them that got manually blocked. It wasn't
Yeah.
even like the bot thing going in. It's like, they're actively monitoring that stuff and they just don't want it out there. So
So are the Eagles. So are the
yeah,
Eagles. The Eagles are like that too. So I
yeah,
won't touch an Eagles.
it's
Um,
it's Don Henley's prerogative if he doesn't want anybody to listen to their music anymore.
yeah.
It's
You,
up to him,
yeah.
but for me, it's for me, but it's also for other people. For
Yeah.
me, it's like I'm learning this music for the first time, and people are like, "What do you mean you haven't heard this music? You're a composer and a musician. What the hell is wrong with you?" I'm like, "Well, you go to work all day, and you work in you're dissecting all this all day. My brain's tired. At the end of the day, the last thing that I want to do is recreate where I work and listen to more music.
Yeah. No.
I would get done with that and I would need a mental and like just brain power break from processing sounds
Yeah.
after doing it all day. And so of course, I knew and heard of these bands. I heard of the songs, and I've probably casually heard riffs and portions over the years, but I've never really sat down and go, okay, what's this song about, and what are they trying to say here? I've never spent time doing that, and so now I have the time. It's
And the
great.
interesting thing is, so whether we like it or not, a following is power. You are at 250,000 subscribers. You're becoming more and more of a musical influence.
Sure.
If you ever watch Rick Beato's channel, sometimes he's got over 3 million subscribers and he's banging his head when he makes his videos saying, this got blocked, I got a copyright strike, this got taken down. And
Yeah.
his point is, look, I'm kind of, with some of the stuff I'm doing, I'm like bringing to life an old song from the 70s that most of the
Hmm.
people now haven't seen or heard. So I'm actually
Yeah.
doing a favor, and I'm re-exposing your music to over 3 million
Yeah.
people. Where you get people like Steve Lukather from Toto. He's very
Right.
grateful to Rick Beato, does interviews with him and everything because he gets it. He's like, yeah. But I can see how it gets frustrating, especially as your influence keeps growing. It's like
Sure.
I'm actually kind of starting to do you a favor now. You're not. It's not just you're doing me a favor. That's a different perspective to look at it.
I've talked to Rick on the phone uh,
Okay.
about this, and the interesting thing was Rick's. I think it was back last year, and I had gotten upset about something being blocked, and I got a message from him, and so we ended up calling, and he's like, "Yeah, people have been telling me that I should dispute more," and I'm like, "Yeah, dispute away," because the way that it works, like these bots just flag stuff, and it's normally not even uh, you know the copyright holders actively doing it. It's the AI that flags it. I'm like, free use, free every time, free use. If they don't respond after a month, then my dispute holds,
Yeah.
and I can, and so it's if I really do believe that what I'm doing is covered by the fair use laws in the United States, as an educational service, then every single video I dispute if there's a copyright claim.
Yeah.
The blocks are demoralizing because there's no way really to guess it ahead of time. I won't know that a video is blocked because of content until I make the video and edit it and upload it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've got an entire day or more if I've got a whole lot of research into it,
Yeah.
and you put it's like working all day and your boss going, start over, you didn't do any work today. It's demoralizing.
I think that's one
um,
thing too when you do requests, which is part of what I do on my channel as well.
mhm.
And someone, especially if it's a Patreon or someone, they do a request a song, and there's a good chance it's going to get blocked. And you're like, oh, what do I do? So I'm at the point now. I'd just rather say them instead of spending that several hours doing that. Could we just tell me something else you'd like to see me do a request to? Because
Yeah,
Black Sabbath apparently are quite bad for that happening as
I've
well.
had decent success with Black Sabbath.
Okay.
I've had some Sabbath tunes that are blocked, and the it's like, I don't know. It's like going. I tell people it's like going fishing.
Yeah.
I consider it's like, well, what's your business model? I'm a fisherman. Every day I get up and I have to bring my bait. I have to spend time, with all of this preparation. I put, the bait in the water, and I spend the time. And sometimes the fish bite, and sometimes the fish don't.
Yeah.
But if I go fishing every day, then in the aggregate, we get to eat fish every day.
Yes.
So it's part of just being consistent
Absolutely.
in your offerings. And that's another thing that I've learned, being a YouTuber, that people really respond to is the consistency. Can they trust the channel? It's like, if I say that I'm daily, am I really daily? Well, actually, I'm not. I'm kind of occasionally Doug instead of the daily Doug.
Yeah.
But people count on that consistency in the program that they watch.
Yeah.
So it's something to live up to. But gosh, it's just a wonderful opportunity for sure, and a
Absolutely.
wonderful platform. As much as I complain about YouTube and their copyright law stuff and all everything, it's a pretty darn good
It
platform.
is. I
Yeah.
totally agree. So I saw you had an interview with Jordan Rudis. So it almost seems like that was big to me because I love Dream Theater. I lost touch with them a little more in their later years,
Mm.
but their earlier stuff, huge fan of. But so you went from not knowing who Dream Theater was.
Yeah. Well, so I knew who Dream Theater was because my good friend Gerard has been a fan of theirs for forever, and
Okay.
so and he's like, you got to listen to this, and of course, like, you know, at a family get together on a Friday night, it's like you hear it in the background. It's like, oh, that's a whole lot of loud noise. I'll get to it later, you
Yeah.
know. And so I knew, like, he loved that, and of course he's a Dream Theater and a Rush fan.
Oh, yeah.
Those are his bands. And we went to Porcupine Tree together this past weekend.
Yeah.
But so I knew who Dream Theater was, but again, I never really taken the time.
Yeah.
It's not something for me, like on a first time listen, that I can just casually get by riding in the car with somebody and then putting a CD on or something. It's
Yeah.
like, no, I've got to sit here with my headphones on and just be in the music, because
So
it's amazing. It's
yeah.
complicated
So
for
it's kind
sure.
of funny. Doug hasn't taken the time with Dream Theater. They had a famous song called "Take the Time," but anyway, that's a kind of Dream Theater humor there.
There you go.
So anyway, yeah, lots of time signature changes and cool stuff in
They've
it.
got too many songs.
Yeah. But how did it come about with Jordan Rudis? Did you reach out to him, or how did that develop?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I I had done, um I think so, last summer, in the summer of 2021, I did an Octavarium reaction, and it's one of, like, their big epic, you know,
Yeah.
23-minute songs, you know. And at the end I was just all over it and excited, and of course they had the orchestra with it and everything. And there were people that were in the comments, and one guy said, if this guy does a reaction to the entire Scenes from a Memory, I'd pay money for that. And it had, like, you know, hundreds of, like, likes and stuff and comments. I'm like, all right, put your money where your mouth is, we're making a Patreon. And so that's the Patreon came about, and the very first video that I did for my Patreon was the entire Scenes from a Memory in one
Mhm.
sitting. And then we're off and running. And people, I think, that are fans of Dream Theater, that are connected to Jordan, kind of made him aware of what I
Ah.
was doing. And I got connected with Jordan as a friend on Facebook, and following him on Instagram, and we just started talking occasionally. And
Mhm.
finally I said, let's chat sometime. He's like, sure, whenever, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm like, cool. The hard part is getting a dialogue with these
Yeah.
folks.
It
But
is.
once you get that, I've found that they're all just eager to discuss what they do. I mean, it's fun to talk about what you're passionate about with other people.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Um, so you do some interviews from time to time. I'm wondering what your criteria is for picking an interview for. Like for me, uh, it's once for me it has to be someone of interest to me, and also,
Hmm.
but I also pay attention to who's very articulate and who's well spoken. Because some great musicians, they're not very articulate and well spoken, and that doesn't necessarily make a good interview or a good discussion. So Jordan Rudis, he's extremely articulate and extremely
Yeah.
well spoken. Is that what criteria do you look at when you
I
think of
I got
people?
lucky because I haven't really made that a priority. All the people that I've talked with have been just wonderful conversationalists, thankfully. Uh, Most of the interviews that I've done have come about kind of serendipitously, and
Hmm.
you know, a supporter of mine says, "Hey, have you ever thought about talking to this person?" Like earlier this year, you ever thought about talking to Steve Hogarth of Marillion? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
Do you know how to get in touch? Yes, I do. So I'm like, okay. And a week and a half later, I'm talking to Steve for 45 minutes, and it was wonderful.
That's awesome.
I got to talk with Annie Haslam of Renaissance, and she was just a wonderful person to talk with, and gave some really great stories through the years. I talked with Neil Morse. Uh, I tend to people whose music really fascinates me uh, are the people that I want to talk to. It's
Hmm.
really that simple. Um, just this week, I talk about something completely out of left field for me. I'm typically doing metal and prog stuff. I talked to one of the world's best barbershop quartet singers.
Okay.
and his name's Tim Warwick, and I'm like, I saw some of his videos on YouTube and Instagram. I'm like, this guy is unbelievable. And come to find out, we have a couple of mutual friends, and we get connected, and then there's an interview. Not many people are going to watch it because it's I don't know how many metalheads are going to go, yeah, barbershop, rock and roll, but it's unbelievable stuff.
But it's also it's interesting to you though, and that's important as well because it's your channel, and I think your followers will respect that.
Yeah.
So and barbershop quartet, so they were born being able to harmonize in major thirds and fifths, right? But another question for you. Just curious, Doug, did you spend any time in bands performing, like, in the bars and that type of stuff?
A little bit in undergrad. I was in two bands briefly in undergrad playing keyboards, and one band we were called Who's Roger, and we basically did just classic rock covers. Whatever our guitar player could actually play was the stuff that we covered, and I had a good time of doing that stuff. You play a set or two, and you get paid with a beer per set, and maybe a $5 bill for the for your cut of the cover. But covering like John Mellencamp and some Springsteen and some Bryan Adams and like Van Morrison stuff, and just fun, trying to figure out a keyboard part for Brown Eyed Girl,
Believe me, I know. But we won't even get into that. I used to when I used to have to play and sing it, I'd change the words. So another question I got for you, Doug, and we're going to start winding it down now. But what are some YouTube channels that you like?
Oh boy, surprisingly, I don't actively watch a whole lot of other music reaction channels. I like Rick's channel. He hasn't done as much reactions lately. He's doing a lot of like, I know about this, and here's why it's awesome. So it's a slightly different way of doing a video like we're doing. I tend to let's see. As far as reactors, I like to follow reactors that are watching movies and TV shows, because that's something I can watch while I'm like cooking dinner or something, and I don't have to really listen too hard to. Who is on my subscriber list? I could almost bring that up. I subscribe to my friend John Franek.
Okay.
And a few other folks. Let's see. Rick's channel. Adam Neely's channel is really great. I enjoy his channel. There's a couple of musicians proper that I follow. Jacob Collier comes to mind. Like whatever that kid puts out, I want to see.
Okay.
It's amazing stuff. And I've got a few politics channels that I follow and a couple other things, but normally, like I said at the beginning, I'm not a connoisseur of music reaction channels. Most of them don't really interest me. But I don't think of myself as doing reaction style. I do reaction style videos, but they're more real-time teaching. They're like impromptu lectures than they are anything else.
I was asked a while ago what reaction channels like. I like your channel, but I tend to really avoid reaction channels because I want my reactions to be very genuine and I want them to be me, right?
Sure.
And mine are maybe a little bit of entertainment, but also mine are educational, a little bit of the music theory stuff. But I also kind of look at things from like a musician who's worked in the dive bars, who's done all the grunt work for years, saying, oh, they just pulled out their inner monitors, so they're having problems with their inner monitors, and they have to hear from the wedge, or he's signaling, the monitor, like the stuff that the layperson doesn't understand.
Sure.
That's kind of my approach or whatever. But
I as an aside, I love being able to watch a live performance whenever I can. And that's tricky because if I don't know a song, like you have to hear the original before you hear how they do it live. And of course, I understand that. But if I'm watching it live, I can see, okay, that person gave an IQ to somebody else. That's how they get out of that. They're queuing when they're going to go to the next section out of the solo just by a look.
Yes,
And
exactly.
if you've been on stage and playing as a musician, you understand being like kind of riding that wave and playing off of nonverbal cues
Yeah.
from everybody and seeing how the song goes.
Um, One of the things when I started my channel last year, and I'd really like to get your take on this, I was like, okay, I want to do a YouTube. And then of course, as you get a following, I'm like, well, Patreon's almost like a next natural step, and I
Mm-hmm.
have an Instagram. But I see some YouTube channels, they have like Snapchats and TikToks and Facebook pages and all this stuff to support their channel. And I'm kind of like, oh man, but I'm already trying to find time to do everything I need to do. That means
Mm-hmm.
that I'll have to do an extra hour a day of doing that. Like, what do you think is the bare minimum? Like, not bare minimum, but the absolute necessities, the bare necessities, to quote the Jungle Book, Doug.
Bare necessities.
Necessities. Yeah.
I hmm that's difficult
Hmm.
because I had a Facebook page, and for a long time I had like a Doug as the composer Facebook page instead of just my personal profile, and I got rid of the page. It was too hard to figure out and
Yeah.
to keep separate. I have an Instagram that I think is underutilized. Whenever I think about it, and I have time in a few minutes to do it, and of course my wife Meg is like, make sure you put in all the hashtags. I'm like, good lord, how many hashtags do I need? I haven't gone into the TikTok world because I tend to talk a lot, and TikTok is short form stuff, so
Yeah.
it's tricky. I think that the bare minimum is putting out your content on the platform, and
Yeah.
people will find it.
Yeah.
Your marketing arm is whatever you feel like you can do, and I'm lucky. I've actually found a few folks that help me with that,
Yeah.
and I've like my wife can log into Instagram as me.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Sometimes it's her.
Okay.
But that's sometimes I need to duplicate myself to be in more than one place at once,
Yeah.
uh, so that I feel like I'm getting to all of the feedback that I can. People are like, do you ever check your Instagram messages? I'm like, not very often. Like, oh, that's why it's been sitting there for 3 weeks and you haven't looked at it. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you and about 40 others.
Yeah.
I
So
I average getting about I between Patreon inbox, Discord inbox, one email, the other email, Facebook message, and Instagram. I probably get over 100 messages a day.
oh, I have. I'm sure, and I think you're probably being very conservative with that
Yeah,
estimate.
for
Um,
easy, it's 100 a day.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like you. I'd rather talk than tick, but I am in a debate right now. Do I need a TikTok? Should I do it? I quickly want to ask you too. For Patreon, do you find Discord is a real boon, a benefit to have, or I'm kind of not sure about that one.
I didn't have any idea what a Discord was. In fact, they do themselves a disservice by naming it Discord. I'm like, everybody join the Discord. I'm like, isn't that a bad
Thing
thing?
and music.
Like Discord is conflict, right?
Yeah.
And so when people were when I was seeking advice, people were like, make sure you have a Discord. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
It's turned into one of my favorite things about doing a Patreon, because
Okay.
it's, for me, we set it up as a private server. It's basically my community's private social media,
Okay.
where politics and other things stay out,
Okay.
and we're cocooned, and we can talk about what we want to talk about. We have what we call Daily Doug Radio, where people can listen to music together, and they just hang out in a chat room, and we're spinning tunes, and we can talk about it. We can either type, or we can actually have like Zoom style conference calls.
Hmm.
We have a music club, which is kind of like a book club where people are like, hey, this is this new band and I want to tell the rest of the community about it. And I'm hardly there because they're trying to get community buy-in on something else that they think that I might like.
Okay.
You know, and so then the community brings, yes, like all of us agree, you need to do this on the channel, versus one rogue person saying, this band is my favorite band. It's difficult to figure out tie-in. So we've harnessed the power of the community. Like we say, send in your recommendations through this like recommendations bot and tell us why. And then people can go, yes, I like that. And they can upvote it. I'm like, okay, you know, like 4 people like this versus 45 people tell me it should be on the channel. And that makes a difference to me, because a lot of the times I don't know these bands and I don't know if they're worth my time or not. But if I get a pretty wide swath of our communities telling me, yeah, this is important, you should take a look at this, even though you've never heard it before, it's easier for me to take a shot on it than somebody in a YouTube comment, you know, just kind of yelling out Freebird, you know. You know.
G, D. Oh, wait, there's an F there. That's interesting. Doug, so just winding it down, 2 last questions. So let's say you have a 15-year-old nephew, and he says, Uncle Doug, I want to start a YouTube channel. What advice can you give me in a nutshell? Because I can't pay attention very good. So just let's keep it to the...
Talk about what you know. Be yourself. Be humble. Admit when you're wrong. And be consistent.
Okay, there you go.
Put out if you commit to 1 video a week, 1 video a month, bi-monthly, a couple of like have a schedule and stick to it. You know, because if people are like, hey, I like this podcast being analogous, right? I like this podcast. Every Tuesday or every Thursday, this new podcast drops. Where is it this week? You know, next week I might not look for it. You know, but if you're like, oh, every Tuesday this new thing comes out, and that's what I do when I cook dinner on Tuesday nights. I listen to Doug's new podcast, right? And if I don't have a podcast that Tuesday, then they lose interest and they move on to another podcast, right? So that consistency of content is like, what if Saturday Night Live in the middle of their season decided that they were going to take a few weeks off, and you're like, well, the next Saturday you're planning something different, you know? Yeah. I mean, that's a bad analogy because everybody loves Saturday Night Live, but the consistency is one of the things that I've really have noticed that keeps people coming back and looking for you. Like they'll come in and people will say, when's your live stream today? I'm like, why do you think that I'm doing a live stream today? Because you do one every Sunday. What time are you doing it? I'll do it at 1 o'clock today. Like, okay, I'll see you then. You know, so they can count on the content and the count on seeing me, and as long as I'm talking about what I know and being myself and being all those sort of things, then you can start to make a connection with an audience.
Excellent. Last question. What are your plans for the future with the channel?
To follow the wave, to follow where it goes. I don't know if it'll morph into doing different style videos, because, you know, at a certain point I will have heard most of Yes's big hits. So I'm not really going to be into listening to Close to the Edge again, you know, because there's only one time you can listen to Close to the Edge for the first time. Right. So I'm already starting to feel a little bit of that cycle, because after a year and a half, a lot of the big time tunes, like, you know, Dark Side, you know, I've done. So what's left? And, you know, quite a bit actually, right? Because there's a ton of music, and but sometimes I get stuck. Like this week, I did Bohemian Rhapsody on the channel, and of course, I've heard that tune a few hundred times, but it was one where I've done a lot of Queen on the channel. I've got a lot of Queen fans that like my videos on Queen. It's been a while since I did one of their songs, and I've got some Queen fans in the Patreon. I'm like, which one should I do next? And they're like, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody's out there. Yeah. And I said, I know that one. They're like, but you're gonna do it at some point. right? It's their big tune. It's fine, do it. And trying to figure out my point of view for a reaction style video where I already really know the song pretty well was quite a challenge to figure out what my point of view for that video was going to be. And it came out pretty well. I'm happy with it, but I mean, mainly because of the greatness of the tune.
Yeah.
But as we go forward, I'll continue to try to use my creativity to find where my energy and my curiosity is leading, and we'll see where it goes.
You know what I always wanted to see you do, even just one time, Doug, just in
Yeah.
wrapping up here? You remember over the pandemic, there's certain people would do like songs together, like all these different known musicians. And they would do like YYZ from Rush or whatever, but they'd do it like all together, and you just edit the video and you put them all. I always thought
Right.
Doug would be great. I would just love to see Doug play and do a song like that once with some other people.
Oh, to play a tune?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I've
think
had a
that'd be
few
great.
people. I've had a few people tell me that they would really like to hear like my like piano versions of some of these songs
Yeah.
when I have time.
Absolutely. Doug,
I'll do that.
everybody, I don't really watch many reaction channels, but I do love Doug's channel. Doug, it has been an absolute pleasure from start to finish. When I first contacted you, when you got back to me, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for everyone out there, Doug Helvering, check out his channel, The Daily Doug. Doug, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Remember, folks, practice hard, but practice smart, and we'll see you soon.